We're waiting for some folks to come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get right into our presentation. It's obviously, as you guys know, it's about SEO. That's why you're here. If you're looking for something else, you're in the wrong place. I also want you guys to know I'm totally fine with you interrupting me any point. Ask a question. I can't purport to know it all, but I know a pretty good amount of this stuff. And if you stump me, it means you got a good question. So don't hesitate at all for a second to raise your hand, walk up to the mic over there, call me out if you think I'm wrong, or just to ask a question specific to your site. I probably, just to make sure that we can get through the presentation, probably won't spend more than about a minute or so. But if you have a question that requires more than about a minute, just meet me outside. I'll be more than willing to talk to you about your problem specifically. So, anyone in here who would ever say they have not failed at SEO is a liar. I fail at SEO all the time, and it's about what you learn from your failures, and that's the angle that this presentation is going to go. I'm looking at over the past of times when things have not worked out the way I planned. I'm sharing them with you, so hopefully that you won't run into the same mistakes that I did when something you thought would work didn't. So let's start first by talking about when you're fixing or when you're working on SEO, although he's not all that popular right now, you cannot deny the fact that Tiger Woods is an extremely focused individual. And regardless of his transgressions, he's always someone that likes to be on the top. Thank you, thank you. But you know, once you're done the chuckle, think about it. He's someone that constantly wants to be at the top. And even when he's at the top, he wants to be higher than that, right? And when it comes to SEO, you gotta have that same perception. Anytime you spend time congratulating yourself on the rankings you've gotten or bragging to your friends is less time you're spending actually working on maintaining those rankings. And it's interesting how quickly great rankings can fail quickly. So the number one way, in my opinion, that SEO efforts fail or fail not to take off at all or do well at all purely deals with loss of focus. Some people just don't have the time, and that's an important thing to realize. If you look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I have about an hour a day to spend on SEO, and the people that I'm competing with have full-out teams doing it all day, every day, odds are they're probably going to outrank you just because they've got more time to focus on it. So let's talk about the 5 things that cause people to lose focus. I just pulled a couple of examples, but basically these were questions I've gotten from people that say, well, Will, what do you think about this? And I go, it really doesn't matter to you at this point. First one, Google Caffeine. We've all heard of Google Caffeine, right? Does anybody know what it's all about, how it works? Who cares? If it didn't change anything to your site, who cares? So when Google Caffeine launches or doesn't launch, or when it's slowly rolling out, as people tend to go back and forth on, all I look at is rankings, traffic, and conversions. And if none of those things have changed, who really cares about Google Caffeine? Does that mean you shouldn't be preparing for what's to come? Maybe, but still, Google's been very tight-lipped about it. Yet I will see people spend hours and hours researching things about Google Caffeine instead of doing some of the other things I'm going to show you that will help you actually improve your rankings and your traffic. The next big thing that people are crazy about right now and bantering about is real-time search. You do a search for Tiger Woods and you see Tiger Woods tweets about Tiger Woods showing up in Google. How many of you actually write about celebrities or like really breaking hot news topics regularly? Not a hand up, which means either you're asleep or you don't. And I'm going to assume it's the latter. So the fact that the only people this really affects, in my opinion, are like celebrity bloggers, where now all of a sudden you've got real-time search results showing up in Google. For the rest of you, you should not care one bit about real-time search unless you've exhausted every opportunity to get every link out there and to actually grow your existing site's rankings and traffic. SEO drama. That's the next thing that people tend to get involved in. Who likes who doesn't like who? When has that ever helped you do your job any better by saying, wow, so-and-so really told so-and-so off? Who cares? Stay out of comments and things like that and the banter back and forth. It will never help you improve your bottom line. Cool or Wolfram Alpha. I love when these things launch. The day they launch, we get all these emails. People ask me, what do you think about Cool? A, it launched like 5 hours ago. B, when I type in Cool, it doesn't show up in Cool. So how good of a search engine is this going to be? Let's continue to focus on what actually works. Let's stick to Google. Let's stick to Yahoo. Let's stick to Bing. Google patents. This is another thing. No one here should really be spending that much time. If you really want to know anything about Google patents, follow a guy named Bill Slawski. His domain is, or his blog is SEO by the Sea. He basically takes the patents and breaks them all down in a layman's terms. But really, what good does it do for you today to know that 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or never, Google might do this? What does that help you do to grow your traffic today? Nothing, right? And there's a slew of other things you can do that actually will help you. And my last one is Twitter. Ooh, I know. Don't talk bad about Twitter. Okay, fine. I'm going to talk bad about Twitter. You know why? Because I tend to analyze all of the work that we do for our clients down to rankings, traffic, and conversions. And until the day that somehow Twitter eclipses natural search to drive more rankings, traffic, or conversions, I will continue to look at it at an arm's distance. I want to figure out ways to use Twitter to get inbound links. Good. Using Twitter to chit-chat with people rarely helps you really build the rankings of your site. So let's really get focused and talk about the things that you can actually do to help improve your rankings. We're going to cover 4 things. Identifying low competition opportunities, kind of understanding what you're up against, and can you actually compete against the people that are ranking well. How to absolutely decimate the long tail. People mention the long tail all the time, but I'm going to give you a really deep dive into the long tail and how to succeed for it. I'm going to talk a lot about universal search's impact. If you are an affiliate or a publisher of any sort, and you blog or write about anything that deals with product, you should be very, very afraid of the things that I'm going to show you into Google. And lastly is trying to help you guys analyze the relationship between your rankings and the traffic it drives. So, do you need an SEO company? No, this is not one of those pitches type presentations. But most of you do need an SEO intervention. And there's a reason why. Because people are stuck on SEO crack. People are stuck on things like dig, PageRank. Oh, okay, so will you dig this for me? Think about it. If you can have 5 of your friends dig something for you, don't you think the PhDs at Google have figured out a way to realize that that's not of any value? But people spend their time asking me, well, what about my PageRank? My PageRank, I think, is like a 4 or 5 for our blog. How does that impact our business? Not at all. Remember, PageRank has mattered less and less and less over the years. Google has deprecated, I believe is the correct term, the value of PageRank in the overall algorithm. Things like compete. How am I doing versus my competitors in compete? How many of you, admit it, look at compete and look at your competitors and see how you compete against them traffic-wise? We all do it, or I did it, and hopefully you won't do it anymore unless you take these next steps. If you're going to use compete as a metric for how you're doing against your competition, you should make sure that their data is accurate before you do that. So what should you do? You should take your Google Analytics and look at your trends in Google Analytics, or your trends in Omniture, or whatever homegrown tool you use. And if at any point the trends are different between compete.com or Alexa or whatever other traffic tool you're trying to use compares to your own data, you know you can't use that as a quality data source going forward. And I've already talked about Twitter being a distraction. So now that we're off the crack, let's get to work. First thing you got to do is understand how competitive your space is. Nothing is going to kill your SEO efforts more than you thinking you can compete for words that you will not be able to rank well for. You'll spend a ton of time, a lot of effort. You'll come to conferences like this and hear me talk at like 30 words a second to try to understand this, only to realize that you've got no chance of competing against some of the people that are there. So I'm going to ask you, how, when you look at keywords you want to target, how do you determine how competitive those keywords are? How do you do it? Do any of these sound familiar to you? Any of you look at how many home pages are on the first page to say, oh, if it's mostly home pages, it's more competitive? That's a good sign. If most of the terms on the home, or most of the sites on the first page of results are people's home pages, you can better believe that term's going to be a little bit more competitive. How many of us look at the raw number of links someone has as a way to compare ourselves against them, or how competitive something is? I would say most of us look at this metric. Or number of deep links, or how competitive something is in AdWords, or even CPCs. Sometimes people will use the AdWords sandbox and say, you know what, I want to look at how competitive, or how much people are willing to pay, as a metric for how competitive are these keywords going to be to go after in organic search. So I'm going to actually use a real example of why some of those are really not the way to understand competitiveness. So this is an example of a client that I worked on. They're currently ranked #1 for a keyword. Let's look over to the right-hand side. And the first thing I'm going to do is a lot of times I think when people use examples, they use these examples of things that are just not competitive. So yeah, anybody can get something to rank well number one. The question is whether or not that term gets a lot of searches and if it is actually competitive. So if I use the Google AdWords sandbox, and I'll link to all these in my blog when I recap the presentation, so you don't have to write them all down. But the Google AdWords sandbox, if I used broad match, and the difference between broad and phrase, I believe Josh went over yesterday in his SEO presentation, so hopefully you were here to see that. So I'm just going to mention them here. 335,000 searches on broad match versus 275,000 on this two-word phrase if I did as phrase match. When you look into Google AdWords Sandbox, the advertiser competition for that keyword in paid search is the highest possible level. Our client has 1,200 links. The number two site has 12.5 or 1.25 million links. And then you continue to look on down. This is one of the eye-opening times where you should realize that getting links and just having a raw number of links increase cannot be the sole way that you're going to succeed in SEO. Yet, because link building is such the hot topic, as it should be, people are saying, I got to get more links. My competitor has 1.25 million links. But they can be beat with good, solid SEO. And the way I'm getting how many links they have is through Yahoo Site Explorer. So I'm going to show you, how many of you have used SEO Quake or are familiar with it? Okay, cool. I've got a whole presentation on how it is on YouTube to get in detail. But the thing I want you to look at is let's see if I can get my mouse pointer on it, right here, which is the number of links according to Yahoo that domain has. So if you install SEO Quake, it's a Firefox plugin, you can then run searches, and anytime you run a search, it'll tell you how many links all of those different people have according to Yahoo. Not bad, free, like it. But as we just saw, the raw number of links is totally the wrong way to look at whether or not you're going to succeed in SEO. So I'm going to tell you two of the tools that I use. The one I use the most is Linkscape, and the other is Majestic SEO. These are paid tools, guys. I know for the longest time I've come up to the Affiliate Summit, and I've talked about the free tools you can use. Is it stuck? Moz rank. It'll give you the Moz rank, but the type of analysis, so there is a free version of Linkscape as there is a free version of Majestic. What I tend to find is that the free version, as everything that gives you the free version, doesn't give you enough to be really successful in SEO, and you're really not going to be able to do some of the deep analysis that I'm going to show you if you're using the free version. But Yahoo Site Explorer is totally free and clear. The problem is with the Yahoo Bing integration, there's a good chance that Yahoo Site Explorer may go away from giving these numbers. So I'm going to tell you one of the things that we got totally wrong. We had a client who had links from some very large websites, and it taught me something about authority links. How many of us spend a lot of time trying to chase down and attain links that seem like they're of high authority? We all do. You should be. You should be spending as much time as possible trying to get links from high authorities. But there's a little bit of a gotcha there. And the gotcha is, depending on how those sites link out, all that effort might be for naught. So what I found is that a lot of women's fashion magazines and a lot of publishers, because they want to get a ton of page views, tend to do is cut up an article into 5 next pages. So what happens when your link goes into the archive and then there's a page of that article, but then your client might have been linked 4 or 5 pages down within that article because they paginate it so much. By the time the search engines get all the way down to this page of a page of a page of a page, there's no link juice there anymore. So yes, you have a link from the New York Times, but the New York Times has buried that link so deep in their site that it really has not no value, but very, very little value. And if you're in a very competitive space, it typically will not be enough to get you over the hump. But there is a way to try to correct that issue. And to me, the biggest thing I try to do is use social promotion. So now here's a time where using Twitter is actually extremely beneficial. You use Twitter, God bless you, and other tools to promote that content deep. So now you're not purely relying on the flow of page rank through the site to tell Google that this page is important. You actually do some link building to that piece on the New York Times site. So let me slow down and just go over what I just told you, because I don't think people may have totally gotten that. What you're doing is you're building links for a site you don't own, okay? And you should, if you have an authority link and it's buried deep into a blog where they archive it or something like that, Because by building social promotion to that site, whether you dig it, delicious it, have your friends add it, Reddit it, whatever you're going to do, assuming that it's really good socially promotable content, now you're building links direct to it, which will give off some signals to the search engines that, yeah, you know what, maybe this page actually has some value, not from it being linked within the site, but the fact that all of these other people have linked to it from out on their sites. And then your link on that page now gets more value to your site. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how Linkscape, which is the tool that I tend to use the most, how it helped me with a very specific issue. So we had a client who started in way past the 100s for a very competitive term, about 3 million searches a month. They were, at one point, we started link building for them, they popped really quick. And then after that, they slowly started to go down. Something you guys should all be aware of by now is when you're building links, if you build a lot early on and don't sustain that number and that level of link building, Google's going to say, wow, this thing must be really important because it's getting all these links. But then as you're no longer getting that many links, Google's going to start saying, well, you're less and less and less and less important. So really what happened is they popped, got on the first page, got a ton of traffic, and then we started seeing this thing slide. And right now this term typically lives in the 18 to 25 range. So while most SEOs, most times when we make recommendations, people don't implement it. We don't have an authority. We don't have a thought leader to really kind of build links around. But this company did everything right. They gave us full access to their product developers. They've developed iPhone apps. Their CEO is mentioned all over the place and is more than willing to get interviewed. But we still weren't able to really push the needle. So how am I going to analyze how other people are outranking me? And this is where Linkscape really helps. Here are my tips for when you're trying to understand what a site is doing that's outranking you to reverse engineer what they're doing so that you can do it better. You want to find sites that are clearly inferior to your site. And this is one of those times where you gotta check your ego. Just because they're outranking you and you don't like it doesn't mean they're naturally inferior. You really gotta look at the site and go, oh my God, this thing was developed in front page. How the heck, you gotta try to find the hints or the ideas that'll come to you that'll say, this person's outranking me and really doesn't deserve it. You will learn more when you're trying to do search by looking at people who attain rankings and don't deserve it than you will by looking at big brands who do. Big brands rank well all the time. There's really not a whole lot you can do about that. So you don't want to analyze Home Depot if one of the words you're targeting is hardwood flooring. They're Home Depot. People link to them all the time. They have millions of dollars in ad campaigns. If you can't replicate that, then what are you really going to learn from them? Probably not a whole lot. You also don't want to pick a site that's got the keywords in the domain already, unless you also have the keywords in the domain. Google has been overweighting keywords in the domain for a very long time, and they're continuing to do it. So if you're trying to figure out what you're going up against and you pick a site that is laptops.com, as your competitor to analyze what they're up to and what they're doing, you're pretty much going to fall flat on your face because Google's giving a ton of value to the fact that they own the domain laptops.com. And picking the wrong sites will totally render your research useless. And that's when you feel like you're failing in SEO. And that's when you feel like you got to go back to the drawing board. So if you don't pick the right sites to try to reverse engineer based on the last few tips, you're probably going to pick the wrong sites and you're probably not going to learn anything from this analysis. And again, you don't want to pick a major brand because you cannot replicate the ways they go about getting links, or you can't replicate their massive ad budgets. So back to how I'm using Linkscape as a tool to help me compete in an area where I'm failing. One thing about Linkscape that I can do is I can bring in all the anchor text for a competitor's link or for a competitor's site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in all of the links that they've got, but then I can add filters on top of those links. Is it an image link or a text-based link? Got to know the anchor text to that link. Because you know what? That's how you find out whether or not you're getting beat on anchor text. Maybe they've got a ton of comments that they paste all over the place on a TechCrunch and whatnot that we all know are no followed. But if you will find people doing things like that, and sometimes it actually works in some industries. Obviously, there's Moz Trust and Moz Rank, which are Linkscape's versions of how to determine PageRank and how to also determine domain authority. If somebody's consistently getting links that have the right anchor text from high authority sites, that should tell you something. They're probably doing link buys of some sort. And I'm not advocating that you go out and buy links. What I am advocating is that you do the things that will help you get onto the first page if your competitors are already doing them, okay? In my opinion, the beauty of Linkscape is that you get to manipulate this stuff in Excel. That is critical when you're doing high amounts of research on people that are outranking you, because then you can start to see trends. For us, the trend that popped up was that every one of this client's competitors was getting a ton of anchor text links in people's blog rolls. And that's how that's how 3 of the top 10 sites were basically in the top spots, while we were languishing down in the 18 to 25 area. So this is how you're going to figure out how your competitors are beating you. Are you getting beat on the fact that the Moz rank, or the value of the links passed to your competitors' sites, tend to be higher? Maybe they're being mentioned in places where they're the only outbound link to a competitor, and the places where you're getting mentioned in the top 10 list. What that means is that if they're getting profiled as an individual site, and you're getting profiled along with 10 others, and that site's got a value of 10, they get a power of 10 pointing to their site, you get a power of 1. Because Google will take the overall power of 10 and divide it by the 10 outbound links. Sometimes you're both getting links from the same location, yet depending on how many other links are on that page, your competitors might be getting more value out of that link than you are. Obviously, you can then look at no-followed links, which I talked about, authority, age, and then potentially raw number of links. So the greatest findings that I had were that authority links do not always pass juice. You really need to understand when you get a great link from a site, not like a Wikipedia, but from like a magazine or a really big important site, they can chop up their URLs, they can chop up using Ajax to make a nice interface to their article. They might chop an article up into 5 parts. All of those things can severely diminish the value of that link pointing to your site. The other thing we found is that getting links from O Magazine means nothing if it doesn't have the exact anchor text. When we did our analysis in Linkscape, it became painfully obvious that we were getting beat on anchor text links. It wasn't just authority, it was actually everyone was kicking our butts because they were able to get that keyword mentioned every time they went out. And what they would do is they'd find 15 bloggers that they could kind of negotiate that anchor text. Well, our client and us, we were working on getting them mentioned in really big magazines, and we got beat. So, and this is the exact number. What we basically figured out is that the one link from the New York Times was not even close to being as valued as finding 15 or so mid-level bloggers who would give them anchor text and put the link on their homepage. We spent so much time trying to work with the editors of the New York Times and begging them and all that, get the link, get the link, get the link, and we got it and nothing happened. And then we did the same thing with Shape Magazine, and we did the same thing with Cosmo, and we did the same thing with Women's Day, and all these magazines, and none of them helped us increase our rankings. Contrary to the fact that everybody says authority links are the way to go, you have to understand where those authority links are being placed. And sometimes you're better off working with 15 lower or middle level bloggers than to try to spend all your time going after one big victory. So we had to create a new link strategy. It's a very tough lesson to learn. So it wasn't about one-offs. This was an industry where we analyzed how we were getting beat. We analyzed everyone else's links. We realized it wasn't one-off guest blog posts where you get one link. These were blog roll links. These were site sponsorships that showed up on every page of their site. People like me would typically tell you all day, site-wide links don't work. In this industry, site-wide links worked like a charm. Having these links in blog rolls and in footers worked like a charm. Mind you, this is a very competitive space, and maybe Google lets people get away with different things there. On the whole, typically I would say site-wide links, really not as big of a deal, won't help you as much as you think. In this instance, it totally went against common logic. It wasn't about getting authority links. And how often do SEOs say, you gotta go out and get authority links from top and high quality bloggers? The only time an authority link was worth it is if we could dictate the anchor text to the magazine, which they would never let you do because of journalistic integrity, or if we could make sure that we got our information placed in the HTML. I'm not a big fan of talking about really understanding like HTML and programming to do SEO, because I'm not a programmer at all. But this is one of those instances where if somebody puts a link on their site, you need to know whether or not it's in an iframe, because an iframe is not going to be spidered. And therefore, you've paid for that link, you've gotten that promotion, they stuck it in an iframe, and you don't know that it's never going to add any value to your site. You need to know when a link is in JavaScript, because search engines don't read the JavaScript link. And as a result, you've just acquired a link and spent a lot of time for something that's going to have no value to you. And in this industry, it was all about heavy anchor text. So our biggest takeaway, how we changed our process as a company, was to do a deep analysis of our competitors much earlier on, so that we then created a unique link strategy based upon how people were already beating us. Sometimes the same old of directory link building or whatever you're looking to do just may not work because it's common knowledge. So at the end of the day, guys, the number of links will never be a sufficient way to look at who's outranking you and why. And that's the point I'm trying to drive home, because so often when I meet with people, they say, well, my competitor has 2,000 links and I have 1,000, so if I get another 1,001, I should probably outrank them, right? No, it's not the case. If we can outrank a Fortune 500 company with 1.25 million links with 1,250, it should tell you something about obsessing about links is not always the best way to win in SEO and to fix your failing SEO efforts. We've already talked about authority links. We talked about watching anchor text links. The one thing about blog posts that you have to be really careful of is they get archived. So if you get a link today from a blog and it's on their homepage and it's an important blog, you're going to get a little bit of a bump. If they write to their blog 5 or 6 or 7 times a day and they only put 5 blog posts up on their homepage, your link is already on the second page of the pagination for next or older blog posts, and then a month or 2 later, you might be in the 2009 archive. So what happens is Google sees that connection from their homepage to yours, gives you a boost. But then as that gets archived deeper and deeper and deeper, you're going to see your rankings slide more and more and more. So what do you need to do? If you're going out and getting links from bloggers, whether it's blog reviews or whatever you're doing, you want to keep a steady flow of that going so that you always have a couple of them that are going to be on the homepage, and you know darn well within 2 or 3 months they're going to be 1 level away, and then 6 months later they're going to be 6 or 7 levels away down in their navigation. So you don't want to just get them once and then leave them be, because they're going to have less and less value over time, and that's when you're going to see your rankings continue to slide further and further down. So let's switch gears a bit. Anyone here that's an affiliate, I feel that the threat to your revenues if you do anything product-based is extremely severe. This is what you have to be worried about. Google Universal Search. I do a search for running shoes. People like pretty pictures, whether you want to admit it or not. People click more on pretty pictures than they do on blue links with a little black text underneath. So what happens all of a sudden when you typically used to rank in the top 10 for running shoes or running shoe reviews, and Google decides to show this? We've got local results, we've got Google-based results, we've got sponsored links at the top right, and then we've got an integration between the AdWords account and the base feed for New Balance in the bottom. People are going to click on the pretty pictures, and you just got shut out of how you can rank on the first page of Google. Well, there's only 4 spots now, instead of there being 10. So maybe you had a 5 or a 6 or a 7 before, and some traffic trickled in. What happens when this happens in your space? Has this happened to anyone where you used to rank well for product searches and now all of a sudden you see this stuff? How does that, it's gotta hurt. It's gotta hurt, right? Think about it. We love pretty pictures. I'm gonna click on the pretty picture to find my shoes. I'm not gonna click on some blog that I don't know about and read all the way through it if I'm looking to buy shoes. They're also catching people at the time when they're ready to buy, which is also bad for you, because now they're not going through the affiliate channel to buy. Now Google's putting these things up direct, and they're going direct through, and you're being bypassed. So you got 2 options. Either you can whine and complain, which is what 80% of people do, and it's why most people fail at SEO. That's not fair. Unless you can say that's not fair to Schmidt, Page, and Brin, just deal with it and get ready to fight back. Don't take this lying down. So I've got some ways to help the affiliates of the world figure out how to fight back. Be a superhero. This kid sucks. Be a superhero. This kid looks awesome. He looks like he's ready to kick some ass. This kid looks like he just wet himself. Don't be that kid. So let's fight back with buying guides. Well, what do you mean fight back with buying guides? Let me show you something. So this is a Google-based result. So this is what happens when Google shows the 5 products, and then above it they have a link saying, want to see more product? You click it, they show a nice long list of products. We've all seen this page. You see the price over to the right, over here. You see the rating for the stores. You see the product and all that. Do you see this? What is that? Google is putting into Google product search buying guides. So in one way, they've cut you out. If you used to rank well for snowboard bindings, because you had a blog all about snowboards, and Google puts up all of these universal results, they cut you out. But Google is algorithmically placing 2 to up to 5 buying guides. Go create some buying guide content, right? Give yourself a chance. Don't be the kid who wet himself. Be the superhero. Listing these buying guides is very, very, very new. I've only seen it for the last 2 months or so. And this is the first time I'm sharing it with you guys. Thank you. I was at the keynote. You guys that didn't get that, you shouldn't have been sleeping so long. Work that hangover over on another day. But Google's in a constant state of flux, guys, and you know this. So just because it's here today does not mean to stop doing the other efforts that will help you be successful. But you know what? Google gives hints. And even if this goes away, I think Google's hinting to us that they like buying guide type content. And what I'm finding is that the buying guides that have pictures, buying guides that have bullet points, buying guides that are typically over about 1,000 words are the ones that are typically showing up down there. So the next way you're going to fight back is with content that revolves around, especially if you're an affiliate, that revolves around review and best and deep niche content. Let me show you. So I typed in running shoes, wide running shoes. Here's my search result. Finally, I don't have 4 different distractions. Remember, if we go back a couple slides, look at all the distractions here. I got local search, shopping search, sponsored links off to the right at the top, and sponsored links off to the bottom right. Now I just got the one to deal with. And it's the one that's inline versus the one that shows 3 or 4 different versions of the product across, which is more images that will attract the eye. Inquiro has done a study on the impact of universal search. And it does exactly what we all know it to do. They just provided some real numbers behind it. And they basically found out that, these images get clicked on more. So this result for wide running shoes only has 1 image on that page. That is only 1 distraction versus the last page, which had about 10 or 15. So getting deeper in the niche. Don't take this lying down. If you used to rank well for a term, like a 2-word phrase, start looking for the most prominent 3 and 4-word phrases. Here's another one that I found, 2009 running shoes, or I think, no, it's actually running shoe reviews is what I searched for here. Review content. When I type in something I'm looking for the best of, or a review, anybody here does e-commerce SEO? If you do e-commerce SEO, have you ever tried to optimize for a word around review or best along with a product category? What did you find out when you optimized for that?
Very easy to rank.
It's very easy to rank. The thing I found out from it is even though it ranks well, if you're the manufacturer or the actual end, you're the actual store itself, they convert like garbage. Like garbage. And I'm seeing this across 15 e-commerce sites. And we stopped optimizing our e-commerce clients for review words. The reason why is very often when I'm typing in review or best or top in the word, I'm looking for someone's opinion that has looked at 4 or 5 different ones and said, which one of these is the best? I don't want you to show me your individual product. And I'm sure as hell not going to show someone my competitor's products, right? Those terms don't do well for e-commerce sites, which means it creates an opportunity for affiliates. Because the smart e-commerce SEOs bail on those because they realize they don't convert. The affiliates should be the ones to jump in and figure out how to take advantage of that opportunity. So you really want to go where the feeds aren't. In my opinion, you want to go where the feeds aren't taking away your old rankings. And lastly, I want to walk you guys through a very detailed way how to absolutely kill the long tail. And I started using my shoe example. And I think I typed in shoes into the Google AdWords sandbox. And I started seeing all these different words come back, and I went, okay. 74,000 searches globally a month for the word best shoes. 40,000 for best running shoes. That's not a bad place to start. We just realized now, guys, that running shoes is basically destroyed with universal search. But words like best shoes, best running shoes, you're only going to see typically 1 image on that page. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. Google Suggest is your friend. It is the quickest way to do keyword research and figure out what's getting hot around a topic. You can do this in 2 seconds. You got your laptop open, go to Google Suggest. If you go to Google Suggest right now, and you're on the internet right now, type in, how can I get my, and the letter G-I-R-L, and look at the crazy stuff people type in when they want Google to suggest to them things that they can get their girlfriend to do. On the flip side, type in, how can I get my BOY? Hilarious. The results will look like this. How can I get my boyfriend to tell me he loves me? How can I get my boyfriend to marry me? How can I get my boyfriend to be more romantic? Do the search right now if you're on the internet with a laptop. It's hilarious, right? It gets deep into the psychology of people and what they search for. But laugh first and then get smart second. If you're an affiliate and you write content, you want to write content around things that people search for. Google Suggest is saying people have searched for these things in the past, and they're usually very deep niche content. Yes, this is a 4 or 5 word phrase. Yes, there is not 100,000 searches for it. But when Google's taking all the market share by using universal search from you, you got to go a little bit deeper. To use a more PG version of what comes up when you type in something in Google Suggest, I typed in best running and the letter S. Notice, this is the #1 way you can destroy your own research. Do not type in best running shoes. Just type in best. And actually where I got here, I typed in best, and then I typed in run, and then I added the next N, and the I, and the G. And yes, that is exactly the way you should use Google Suggest when you're doing keyword research to try to write for new content areas. Because then Google's going to start telling you what people have searched for the most. If you go in and just start typing in a full phrase and then say, well, after I type in best running shoes, what do people type in? You have biased your own research. You have closed your mind off to all these opportunities out there. It's funny, I would say about once or twice a day, I just type in random couple letters and start to see what people are looking for. It gives you ideas on areas where you can write.
Is that a ranking? When you see best running shoes, are those terms more searched than best running songs?
Yes. That is how I understand it to be, is yes.
So I would want to favor best running shoes versus best running shoes 2008.
I would say, why wouldn't you write a blog post every year about the best running shoes of 08, 09, 2010, and that way you got a chance to rank for best running shoes and best running shoes 2008. So like for me, I try to find ways to combine these individual different words into 1 or maybe 2 posts. So now I've got a chance to kill the long tail. I got a chance to rank for 10 different versions of the word instead of just going after best running shoes only. Because sometimes you won't be successful when you go after best running shoes. But it's all good if you also put in a couple of years in there. Oh, the best running shoes of 08, 09 and how they compared. Now you're starting to get some content up there that Google might long-term reward you for, even if you don't get the top of the tail term. Does that make sense? Anybody else got any questions while we're at it? Okay, I'm going to keep rocking. There's another tool you can use is Yahoo Site Explorer. Yahoo Site Explorer is also, Yahoo Search Assist. So it's just Yahoo Suggest, but they do a little bit of a better job with word order. Google Suggest has started to get this right, but they still don't have it 100%. So if you were to go to Google Suggest, the old way they used to work, and I haven't tested this recently, is if you typed in foot, F-O-O-T. Every derivative starts with F-O-O-T. Gotcha? Are you with me? If you were to do that in Yahoo, in the search assist, it would show you that the most frequently searched word that when people type in F-O-O-T is actually fantasy football. Again, if you did that, at least the way Google used to work in Google Suggest, you would have never seen that fantasy football is a more important search word than football, whatever, because the way that those tools work. But those 2 tools are so easy. When all you guys typed in, how can I get my girlfriend, or how can I get my boyfriend, you should immediately turn that into, well, let me start typing some things into my business. Chuckle, then get smart. I don't know what industries people are in, but whatever your industry you're in, just type in laptop repair, dropped my, and just leave it blank. What do people search for the most where they dropped something? Is it iPhone, Nexus 1, whatever it might be, who knows? But just explore. You will find tons of opportunities to write longer tail content that no one else is typically going after.
Well,
yes?
It looks like, I don't know if you said this, the Google Suggest, it looks like you don't want to be logged in, right? Otherwise it is skewed towards...
Good point. Very good point. So, thank you very much. So, Google personalized search, there's 2 things I want to talk about that, is you want to be logged out, but being logged out doesn't matter anymore. Being logged out does not matter. Google came out and said about 2 to 3 months ago, if you log out of Google, we're still going to show you personalized results because we got other ways to identify you. Cookie, IP, whatever, right? So if anybody here ever checks their rankings and logs out of Google and then runs the search and goes, I'm still ranked in the same spot, it's because they cookied you. So you can't log out. Okay, I don't have this in my presentation, but I know it because it's in my browser. There's a guy, his name is, I believe it's pronounced Yoast, or whatever. It's yoast.com. Show's over. He has a plugin for Firefox that always runs Google unpersonalized search. I'll put a bunch of my cards up here at the end. If you just grab one and email me, I'll send that link out to you guys, because that's how I now search Google unpersonalized, because even when I log out, I'm still getting the same results. Or you can use IE. I'm serious. I used to use IE before I found this plugin. I was like, well, I don't use it for anything, so I know that Google has no history there. I never log in there with Google, so it's another way to check your rankings. And here is Yahoo Search Assist, and it illustrates what I mean when I type in the word running shoe. It's showing me ASICS, it's showing me Nike, before it just shows me running shoe and whatever else comes after it. Gives you more ideas, more brands to think about, what's getting hot, what's getting popular. Damn, I'm always overtime. Okay, so here I'm using Google Insights. I'm plugging in a bunch of words. There's some filters off to the right, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but what I wanted to ultimately do is drop in a bunch of words and see what the trends were like. But then I took some of these out because I really wasn't able to see what I wanted to see, and I saw this. This is important. The affiliates that are here, this is important. When I see this, this is the trend from 2004 until the present day. You look at the word running shoes from 2004 till today, I'm not seeing the uptick that I'm seeing for best shoes, which means people are searching more and using the search engine to say, well, what's the best? That's a term that's getting more momentum, while running shoe, for the most part, since 2004 has been up and down a little bit, but it's basically flat. Obviously, the second trend line is not. This is how you can find something in your space that's starting to overtake the big keyword in the space. And if you do have the big keyword in the space and you're fortunate enough to be ranking well for it, you still need to do this, because it's going to show you what's coming up that will help you block out and box out your competition from writing content that's on the uptick while you're still writing content for something that is flat. Okay, now I'm digging in Insights even deeper. In the bottom right-hand corner of Google Insights, it will show you rising searches. When I typed in running shoes, isn't it interesting that the rising search on the left-hand side was ASICS? That tells me something. If I'm trying to optimize my site, and I got all these brands I'm trying to optimize, wouldn't you use a tool like this to help you prioritize which ones do you spend your time on first, second, third, fourth, fifth? These are the ones that are getting hot or rising in the selected time period. But you don't stop there. You keep digging. You stay focused. So what I did then is I clicked on, I think on this one I clicked on ASICS running shoes. No, I clicked on ASICS shoes, and it brought up the second one. And then it showed me ASICS Nimbus shoes. Anybody here know ASICS Nimbus shoes? You're a runner, I'm assuming. Right. A lot of us are SEOs that don't run, right? But some of us are optimizing sites in running or in sports or in whatever it may be. If you continue to click on the results in Google Insights, you will dig down deep enough, and I saw this for a client and went, oh, ASICS Nimbus. I don't know squat about it, but it's rising, and I want to be one of the first people to write content about it. I want to direct their content writers to write the review on the ASICS Nimbus shoe because it's getting hot. I still don't quit there. As an example, actually, I don't have the right slide here. When you click on ASICS Nimbus shoes in Google Insights, you know what it comes back with? ASICS Nimbus 9, ASICS Nimbus 10, ASICS Nimbus 8. Long tail, more and more and more content. Now, if you write content around ASICS Nimbus 8 or 9, you're probably going to run into Google Universal Search, right? But when you type in ASICS Nimbus Universe or ASICS Nimbus and leave it blank, you start seeing people look for reviews, comparisons of the ASICS Nimbus 8 versus the 9. And that's the content that affiliates can write, because those terms will typically be ignored by most SEOs actually at ASICS or at an online sporting goods site. Here's something that is so critical about the filters in Insights, and you really should pay attention to this because it's a way that a lot of people make mistakes in their keyword research. I took the word hardwood flooring, and I left, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to show you. So see up here to the top right where it's got all these filters? I left it at 2004 to the present. When I did that, here's what Google told me were the rising searches. When I decided to do the last 12 months, Here's what Google told me were the rising searches. You have to know these tools that you're using and the filters and the triggers that will cause you to possibly get inaccurate data. If you did not know to take the 2004 and say, well, I don't need to see the trend over 6 years, I want to see what's gotten hot in the last year so I can write to that. If you did not know to use that filter, you would be writing about installation, floor, cost still seems to be high, but obviously engineered hardwood flooring is the hottest hardwood flooring term over the last 12 months in that area. Did not show up on the left-hand side. And you would have written content for something that is an old trend, not a newer trend. So we already talked about that. So now you might be thinking of a panic. Oh my God, so now I got another thing to worry about with SEO. Universal search is taking away all my opportunities. Calm down. Running in a panic is never a good thing, and here's why. Somebody will wipe the floor with you. So let's take it easy. Let's get smart about this. Let's figure out how big is this threat to me. Here's the tools you're going to need to pack your kit. You're going to need a rank checker. Your rank checker needs to capture the SERP. It needs to capture an image of that results page when it got your ranking, and I'll explain why in a second. You got to have your analytics installed. How many of you are in the Google Analytics beta for Google Google Intelligence? All right, cool. If you're not, ask them very nicely to let you in, because I'm going to show you guys something that's really good, a really good way of letting tools run in the background for you so you don't wake up every day and check a bunch of stuff and waste a half hour looking for information when you can set alerts and say, I only want to know when it goes over this threshold. And lastly, Webmaster Tools. So this is how we're going to strategically figure out the threat that universal search may pose to your traffic. My rank checker of choice is Raven Tools. Really, at the end of the day, you can use any one that will capture the SERP, but Raven Tools is really good. They have an API, which lets me pull the data and do what I want with my rankings and my own tools. It captures the SERPs, and it has a ton of other really good features. It is a paid tool. Trust me, guys, if I knew a free one that could help you get from point A to point B, I would tell you. This one is not free, but it's worth paying for. So, the biggest thing we've already talked about is we know universal search can impact my click-through rate. Well, tell me something new. I got you. Hold on. So, take your rank checker, your tool. For me, it's Raven. And you want to look at the history of your rankings over time. So let's say your ranking's consistently been number 5. But if universal search came in and you're ranked number 5 organically still, that might put you at the bottom of the page because they've put in product search, local search, and a lot of other things. So you're not going to see a ranking drop. This is why anyone that purely analyzes their SEO by rankings is crazy. Because your rankings may never drop. But if universal search comes in, that ranking might drive a lot less traffic to your site and a lot less conversions. So I'm always on the lookout for where universal search is creeping into the SERPs and causing us to have less traffic and conversions. Then I'll set up my Google Analytics alerts with Google Analytics Intelligence. I usually ask for about 2 weeks, and you can set different filters, and I'll show it to you in a second. And I'm looking for when traffic or conversions from a keyword declines significantly, and it'll give me an automatic notification. And here's what it looks like if you can create an alert in Google Intelligence. I can create the alert name, I can apply it to my site, and I can say, you know what, I want to run it every day, every week, or every month. And I want to be emailed when something triggers this alert. And then I can set conditions on the alert. So I want to know when the keyword matches a keyword that's been performing for me very well for a long time, right? It's been driving me a ton of traffic, ton of money. Maybe that word for me is SEO consultants. And I want to be alerted when my visitors increase by more than 25% over the previous month. That will tell me when basically, and I'm going to look at my rankings, if my traffic increases by 25% or more, my ranking stays the same, you just caught something. Something happened. And I will tell you exactly what happened because this happened to us. Google used to show local results for SEOs. So we used to capture all kinds of top rankings for like Philadelphia SEO all the time. And all of a sudden in comes local search. And I was a victim of what I'm telling you guys happens in the affiliate space or with universal search. All of a sudden, random people. There was a Korean guy named SEO something, something. He was outranking me. He didn't do SEO. His name was SEO, or however it's pronounced. But he was outranking me for SEO Philadelphia because of the local results were there, which still annoyed me. So then what do all the SEOs do? We all put in SEER Interactive, SEO company, as our company name now. And Google went, eh. Just a couple weeks ago, they cut that out. When they cut out those local results from showing up above the SERPs, we suddenly got a 25% jump, same ranking. Because we were still the top ranking, but now there was just these other distractions in top. Google pulled it, it went up, and it told me something about how I'm going to go doing SEO moving forward. On the flip side, you can do a decrease. And this is where you're going to catch the big problems, is whenever a certain word drives 25% less traffic than it did the previous week. And obviously you're using your SERP tracker, it's got to take an image of the SERP when it got there. The reason why that's important is how else will you know when universal search came in and when universal search went out? That's why you have to use a tracker for your rankings that will show those results. In Google Webmaster Tools, it'll give you a lot of information on your position. The thing I tell people about is this is wickedly inaccurate. Wickedly inaccurate. I have seen it be off by pages deep. So I've seen them say that we were ranked number 6 and I was 16. So do not rely purely on the Google Webmaster Tools as the way to determine where you're ranking because it's often off. So just like I said with compete.com, check your rankings in Google Webmaster Tools. If they're about right, then maybe it's something that would work for you. I will tell you, across about 60 sites, I see it as being pretty darn inaccurate. So, as we wrap up, there's a couple things I want you guys to remember. You have to stay focused on what matters. Stay focused on what actually matters. Don't worry about trying to figure out Wolfram Alpha. You all did it. When Wolfram Alpha launched, you spent a couple of minutes and you got all deep into it, and what happened? How many of you have gotten any referrals from Wolfram Alpha with any real high volume? There's usually one. No one. Look around. Nobody has. But how many of us spent an hour, a half hour, kind of figuring it out and running queries in it when it first launched, or with Cool? We all did. Leave that to me, and I'll tell you whether or not it's any good. But don't spend your time, when you've got limited time, trying to do things like build links by taking yourself off of what matters most still. You can't ever rest. I'm sorry, it's the way the search engines work. They're always going to keep you on your toes, which is why you want to create things like alerts to automatically notify you whenever something comes up. And that way you're not in Google Analytics every day trying to see, did this move up or down? Just sit back and let it alert you. And stay off the crack. Don't go around asking your friends to dig your stuff and think that's going to be the path for you to be successful. I mean, really, guys, how many of you in here have ever asked someone to dig your stuff and you got your 4 or 5 digs and it just came with a flood of traffic from dig? It doesn't happen. Putting out your content on Twitter as links, you got to put them through some kind of a tracker. See whether or not people actually click on your links. See if people actually even retweet what you tweet. Does anybody care that you just walked your dog and linked to that picture? If not, Twitter's not going to be something that's going to help you be successful. And I think those are the things that will help you fix your failing SEO efforts. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, because I don't tweet about my dog that much, everything for me is Will Reynolds. It's 1L. You can see on Twitter, YouTube, my delicious is probably the best way to leave here and pick my brain 24/7. Anything that I read that I think is any good in SEO, I always tag in delicious. There were things I tagged this morning about some new features in Google. I have about 1,000 individual things tagged with words like link building and words like universal and words like real-time search so that you can just go in and check my tags and see what I've been reading without even asking me, right? And lastly, there's our blog if you ever want to see what we're writing about or talking about on the SEER blog. Thank you so much. We've got a couple minutes for questions if you guys have any at all. Anything's on the table. Feel free to ask. All right. Thank you. So, question.
Have you guys done any research as far as a post getting or any page getting ranked higher because of its click-through rate within the search engines? I've done some research on it. It seems like I don't have enough on it, but it just seems like you're always seeing top 5 best XYZ ranking higher than good shoes. I mean, is there a potential that Google might be saying, hey, obviously
So the question revolves around the impact of click-through rates on rankings. And that's a good question. And the answer is it makes logical sense to me with all of us. How many of us have the Google toolbar installed? Right? Yeah, you don't have to put them up. I know you all do. When you use it and you're logged in, Google has click-through data on these SERPs. It wouldn't surprise me if somewhere in the algorithm Google is using click-through data, or if they don't have a plan to use click-through data. But as I see it today, I'm not seeing it impact things too much. I will tell you that it's not as simple as if I get clicked a lot, will I rank better? Snap did that in like 2001. And you know what SEOs did? They built spiders that clicked on their listing in Snap and never closed the browser. So then that's how you got yourself to rank really well. So let's not look at this simplistically, like we would with like, ooh, can you dig my stuff? If Google ever figures out or uses click-through data in determining rankings, it's going to be a pretty convoluted and complex way they're going to do it. It won't be as simple as, well, if I click something on a bunch of different IPs and set up 15 servers or 50 servers or 150 servers spread out all over the world, and they automatically run a query with my script and click my listing and open up and never close out the browser, will that help me to rank? If I can think of that in 2 minutes, the PhDs at Google will definitely figure out a much better way to use click-through data in SERPs. But right now, I'm not seeing it. Yeah.
Hey, Will. Jay Berkowitz, 10 Golden Rules. Great presentation, as always.
Thank you.
Two-part question. Part one, search social media to drive search results, and searching in social media. What do you think about that opportunity?
Okay. So basically, it's how to use, the first part is how to use social media to drive search results, like SEO results. Well, one of the things that I talk about, and I did it, and I'm going to say it was one of the last affiliate summits I was at, was how to actually use Twitter for link building and use Twitter for SEO purposes to help you rank better. And in my opinion, there's a couple of ways to use it. Contests. We have a client that's running a photography contest right now. Twitter was a great way to get the word out. We added a couple of top photographers, and then they didn't mind spreading the word for us, and then they got a lot more entries. The entry, though, required a blogger to link to the site as part of their entry, so then we got more links to the site. You know, give me free photography gear was the slug line they linked to, help our client to rank better for photography gear. So that's a way you can actually use Twitter to help you build links. We had a client who had 2 Huskies in their office, and they talked about how the company Twitters from a Husky's perspective. And I said, that's a link building opportunity. And I went and I typed in suggest, dogs, who, and hit the letter T. Saw what came back. And of course, there's dogs who Twitter, cats who Twitter, blah, blah, blah. And there were lists. And our client ended up getting mentioned in the USA Today because we did we wrote the author of the article that he had done a year or so ago and said, hey, our company actually Twitters from a Husky's perspective. Boom, link. Now, of course, it was buried. Didn't get the anchor text I wanted. But it's an example of how you can use social to really drive SEO results. But just tweeting for the sake of tweeting is probably not going to be the way to do it. Now, on the flip side, to do search within social media, or like within, like use like search.twitter.com. Here's how I've used search.twitter.com to grow links and to drive SEO results. You break your iPhone, you drop it, right? You'd be amazed at how many people tweet the fact that they broke and dropped their iPhone. So if my client is an iPhone repair company, anytime somebody tweets that by looking through search.twitter.com, we're saying, hey, every month or every week, someone that dropped their iPhone and broke it and shattered it, we'll fix it for free if you send it in. Now we're using search.twitter.com and people talking in the social landscape to figure out ways to give them something that might make them go, I want to talk about that. But remember, them talking about how cool our client was on Twitter, no good for us. We need to find a way to create something that causes them to link to us, and that will help our client to rank better. So that's the important distinction between, hey, we're going to fix your iPhone and making that a social thing, versus making it a social thing, but also building in a search component to help you actually get the maximum value from it. Is that fair? Thank you, sir. Yes?
Hi, my name is Brad Goss. Thanks for your talk. Best one so far at the show, I think. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your mention of buyer's guides? That's kind of the take-home for me. And specifically, my question is, do you think that that's a good opportunity to publish like a PDF buyer's guide as opposed to HTML? And what do you think the difference would be?
Okay. PDFs. So as an SEO, that's my reaction, right? If I worked for Adobe, maybe they would have a different one. Here's the problem with a PDF, is they can do really wonderful things for you. Oh, darn it. David Meerman Scott has a PDF that ranks like #2 for some very competitive term. And he was showing it to me, and I was like, get out, that's not bad. But you know what? He figured out ways to actually analyze the impact, because a PDF you can't tag that with a Google tag. So if you have a tag-based analytics platform, you do not know when people are opening that PDF. Now, of course, you can always do click tracking within your site to do an outbound click over, but the problem is if a PDF ever ranks really well, the person's not on your site already to get that click to open the PDF. So it creates a hole in your data. So I'm a much bigger fan of saying, get that stuff in HTML, and if you want to make it easy, if it's something that fits in a great chart format or something someone might want to hang up and you want it to print out well, make that the option. But make the HTML the definite. It's always in the HTML. Make it really pretty, really nice, and then make the PDF an option to allow the person to print it out and to reuse it. That would be the approach that I would take. Does anybody got another question?
Hi there, my name's Wendy Lamage, and my site's Sweetie Sweeps, and I have some questions. How do you figure out what is considered a high value or high quality blog? Is it the PR?
Okay, so for me, I tend to look at a high quality blog as something that has a decent amount of tags and delicious. I love seeing bloggers who other people are categorizing as an important blogger in a certain space. I will use PageRank as one of the metrics that I'll use. I'll look at their inbound links and I'll see the authority of the inbound links to their site. So one of the ways is if you're gonna have a hard time getting a link from a CNN, right? Very hard. But we all know that CNN, because they're link stingy, doesn't link out to crap. So then I'm gonna look for bloggers who get links from places like CNN, Time Magazine, and other places and try to figure out a way to get a link from their site because they get authority by association. The fact that they get links from their local newspapers, the fact they get links from a CNN, from a Time, all give me an opportunity to get a link from them because I might not have the opportunity for most of our clients to actually be able to go and get a link of that quality. So that's a couple of the ways that I look at the quality of an individual blog.
So I actually got a link from MSN and CNN, and I was on the front page.
Nice.
And but it's a no follow, so does that not have any value?
You know what? So here's my thing about no follows. It's the same thing whether it's you got mentioned in MSNBC and CNN and they no followed it, or if it's just in general, like Wikipedia, and they no follow links. The people read MSNBC and CNN. A lot of those people blog. They're gonna read a story about you on CNN, and they're gonna go out to their blog and say, oh, I was watching CNN and saw this thing, and they're gonna link right out to you because they saw you. So then what you wanna do is find all those people that are now linking to you direct, and go back and leave a little comment, thank them, start to create a little bit of a relationship. Sometimes a couple months later, you might be able to go back and request a little bit different anchor text in your link. But that's the way that I would say, if you have something that's no followed, never look at it as valueless. Because people will read those things and then link to you because they read it there. Same reason why I love being in Wikipedia. Not because of the value of the link, because of the amount of people that will see my client there and might potentially link over to them in their own research or in their own blogs.
Is there an easy way to find those people that are actually writing about what they've read on the MSN?
Yes, if you drop me your information, I'll send you a couple queries. So there's queries you can run in Google that will tell you anytime somebody's linking to you that are much more advanced than just the link domain search on Yahoo, which is what most people use. Google Alerts is also a great one. It's an easy one.
Right.
You know, drop your name into Google Alerts, drop your domain name into Google Alerts. Use a lot of quotes in Google Alerts.
Yep.
They tend to do some really bad matching, and then you'll get so much stuff from them that it almost becomes useless to find the needle in the haystack because they send you 50 for every one that's good.
Okay, great. And one last question is, is there a percentage that you should be using of backlinks for your keyword versus the actual name of your site versus the, my name, sweetiesweeps.com, to make it look more natural? It shouldn't always be keyword backlinks, correct?
Right, and it never will be, because when you get great press mentions, those people are rarely ever going to link out to you with keywords. So one of the hardest things to do, guys, is to get the keywords in your link. So something that anybody that's building a new site someone once told me was, if you put the keywords as part of your anchor text, as part of your site domain, every time somebody links to you, they're linking to you with your anchor text. And I was like, oh, but that's so smart. Now, if you don't have that opportunity,
right,
I would say don't worry about the fact that you've got some kind of some people link to you with the www.whateveryournameiS.com, and other people link to you with actual anchor text. But what you'll need to do is do the analysis I talked about earlier. See who's above you and what they're doing to outrank you. If you find that they are getting the same kind of high quality links you're getting, but they're getting anchor text and that's why they're beating you out, then that tells you that you're gonna have to work a little bit harder at kind of getting those editors or people that write about you to try to sweeten the deal a little bit for them.
Right.
to make them link to you with anchor text. So do the research on who's outranking you for your words, and then that should dictate the tactics you use to build links, whether they have anchor text or not.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure, my pleasure.